dying at childbirth or under 5 reduced. When we looked at maternal health, the number of women dying during childbirth also reduced. But when you looked in totality, there was a reduction, but it wasn't to the level that was expected. So the world did make progress, and in that respect, Zambia did make progress, but the progress was not as to the expected levels. If I can just take a few examples of Zambia, when it comes to childbirth, before 2000, Zambia's the number of children dying at childbirth was roughly about 110 to 120 for every 1,000 live births. That reduced to about 70, so a good reduction, but it was far from the target of 37.
Let me move on to Dr. Kalila. At the time these MDGs expired in 2015, somewhere there, you were Deputy Minister of a critical ministry, Ministry of Health. It should be way back. You were also a member of parliament. You've been a member of parliament for Lukulu for quite some time now. How did Zambia fare in terms of the MDGs before they expired?
Yeah, so maybe just a slight correction. At the time of the review, which was somewhere around 2014, 2012, 13, 14, leading up to 2015. Yeah, I was already a backbencher here, by the way, having exited government in 2011. Remember, I was nominated before. Yeah, so basically, at that time, there were Millennium Development Goals, as you have heard from the resident coordinator. And as a backbencher here, our focus, mainly as parliamentarians, was just in buttressing the point that the country needed to own up to the commitments that it made in signing up to the 8 Millennium Development Goals. So many members, which is still true as of today, continues to push for meeting those Millennium Development Goals. And quite unfortunately as it is, globally, the world did not meet those Millennium Development Goals, including Zambia. But as members of parliament, I must add that at that point, the conversation began to formalize ourselves into a group that would continue to advocate for meeting these goals, that would continue to advocate for ensuring that the world continued to focus on the most important development challenges. And I must confirm that we did participate in the global dialogue that was instituted at that time to transform the 8 MDGs into what is now the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It was felt that the 8 MDGs were too narrow, they were too few, and that many people of the world did not participate in formulating them. As MPs, we were questioning how did they arrive at these 8 MDGs. We believed that there were more to development than just those 8 MDGs. And indeed, the UN initiated a process globally, actually, of consultation with various sectors, civil society, government agencies, and parliamentarians. And we were quite happy that even here, we were consulted, those of us that had already started conversations around MDGs, and we gave an input into it. And so we were quite happy in 2015 when again countries of the world returned back to New York and came up with these 17 SDGs which you see today. So basically we had an input into them as well. All right,
this is the SDG and You program, and this is the program that looks at the 17 SDGs. And today we do have Ms. Beatrice Mutali, who is United Nations Resident Coordinator, and Dr. Christopher Kalila, who is the caucus chairperson of All Party on Sustainable Development Goals. We shall be opening the phone lines, and this is an interactive program where you, our viewers and our listeners, will be able to interact with us live on this platform. And my sign language interpreter for today is Chola Kauma. What really necessitated the formulation of the SDGs?
I think the Member of Parliament already alluded to it. I think it was the realization that the MDGs had not quite lived to the expectations. So the SDGs were really they were really developed to respond to the unfinished business of, if I can say it briefly, to the unfinished business of the MDGs. They really took into consideration that, as the Member of Parliament said, that the MDGs were narrow. So these were actually broader, went into really taking a holistic and more integrated approach, looked at issues affecting people holistically, the areas affecting the planet holistically, the environment, looked at economic development in a holistic manner, and also looked at peace and development in a holistic manner. So they recognized the integrated nature, also recognized the criticality of ensuring that no one was left behind, that they were inclusive, that even anybody, wherever they were part of the process. They also looked at the human rights issues that needed to be taken into consideration. So in brief, the SDGs aimed to really build on the progress of the MDGs, but also learn from the gaps within the MDGs, and ensure that as in terms of development, that the world was approaching all the development at a holistic level.
Okay. Doc, you are chairperson of a very critical caucus, and this is All-Party Caucus on Sustainable Development. Just share with us some of the activities that you've lined up to make sure that you help Zambia achieve these SDGs.
Yeah, okay. So, as I said in my introductory remarks, the All-Party Caucus basically was launched in 2017 because All-Party Caucus on Sustainable Development Goals. Before then, they were Millennium Development Goals. And the first thing was to try and build capacity in some of our members to understand what these SDGs are all about. Basically to impress it upon our members that every time they are asking questions on the floor of the House about ending poverty, about access to quality education, about access to health care, energy, or clean environment, peace, security, all those things, they were talking about sustainable development goals. They may not even have realized it. And if you look, these are the issues which members of parliament deal with almost on a daily basis. On the order paper, even today, there are always questions about these issues. And so it was necessary that we take them through some of these paces, and working with the African Center for Development Goals, which is here in Lusaka, by the way. We have had some training workshops with the members of parliament, especially committee chairmen. Because if you see also our committee system here at the National Assembly, the committees, in a way, are mirrored against these same SDGs. So we have a committee on education, which is SDG number 4. We have a committee on health, SDG number 3. All these, we have legal, we have a committee on security, all these are actually the very SDGs. So it's not rocket science at all, and that's the whole idea that we've been trying to do. So apart from that, we have also participated jointly with the United Nations and also the Minister of Finance. Just last month, they called some committee chairmen for a meeting at which government was sharing to us the voluntary review of how the country is applying or where we are with regard to the Sustainable Development Goals, because it is a requirement that each country voluntarily can go in September at the United Nations General Assembly and report themselves how they have fared. So they felt that they needed to share with us. Not only that, in the previous regime, if you recall, there was a Minister of National Development Planning, which were dealing mainly with these Sustainable Development Goals, and they produced, together with our advocates and instigation, a whole report, what they were calling the sub-national analysis of all our constituencies.
So how would you rate Zambia so far in terms of before I get to the UN,
yeah,
to look at the global level?
Yeah. First of all, currently at the National Assembly there's a process going on of which I'm a part, the Select Committee, which is reviewing the 8th National Development Plan. Now this is happening for the first time, and the 8th National Development Plan draws its tenets from the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay? So by simply reviewing that document, which we are doing now, we are having a glimpse into how the country is applying these SDGs. And so far, what I can share with you, what is coming up, although of course we haven't completed the process, we are just about to host the Minister of Finance. He's going to come here and share with us also how we are applying the 8th National Development Plan, and by extension how we are, of course, faring with the Sustainable Development Goals. What we are seeing is exactly what also Madam Mutali said here. We have made some progress in some respects, particularly like in education. You know, the free education policy has ramped up enrollment rates, recruited teachers, so we are seeing some appreciable gains in there. We have also seen some progress in the health sector, particularly in terms of reducing maternal mortality rates, infant mortality rates. We have seen the fact that some of the indicators like you know, access to sexual and reproductive health, the teaching of comprehensive sexuality education. We have seen a reduction in TB and rates. We've seen a reduction in HIV rates over the years, of course. Okay. We have also seen tremendous progress with regard to HIV programming, which is already mentioned. You know, the country currently, we have more than 1,200 on ART treatment. In fact, if there's one indicator where we are doing so well, it's the one on HIV. We are very much on course to meet that target. Okay. However, there are also some areas where we are not doing very well, particularly in economic transformation and job creation, which is anchored on 4 main priorities of the government, such as manufacturing. The low levels of value addition are affecting that. And then we also have mining. Everybody knows the story of the fact that the mining sector currently is not doing so well, and we've seen that in the indicators in the document that we are reviewing. So it's some areas not so well. Okay. Some areas are quite.
Let's accommodate our callers. Those of you that are watching us and listening to us on Parliament platforms, feel free to call us on 07728322122. 077 122, and I'll be able also to read some of the text messages that you're sending via the Facebook platform. That's the National Assembly of Zambia. Like that page and let us know where you're watching us from, and you can ask a question. And my guest today is do have Ms. Beatrice Mutali, who is United Nations Resident Coordinator, and also have Dr. Christopher Kadila, who is a chairperson of All-Party Caucus on Sustainable Development Goals. The number that we're using is 07728322122 if you wish to participate. Let me get back to you, ma'am. We are looking at how Zambia has fared in terms of the SDGs. At the regional level in Africa, how would you rate Zambia?
Very interesting question. And actually, when you talk of the regional level, the picture you see in Zambia is more or less the picture you see at a regional level across Africa, and more or less the picture you see across many of the developing countries. I think one thing we must recognize is that in Africa and in Zambia, progress was being made. But none of us anticipated the COVID-19 pandemic, because that almost threw us backwards. And that was not only for Zambia, that was for the rest of Africa and the rest of the world. So while we were making steady progress until then, it threw us a bit backwards. And we had to really begin kind of building back since COVID. But the progress you're seeing in the health sector cuts across most of Africa. The same progress we're seeing progress has been made in the health sector. We're seeing progress in the education sector. There's been a great move. You remember last year there was also the transforming education move around transforming education. So a lot of countries have moved towards really making education more fit for purpose, really ensuring that more young people, more girls are able to go to school, more boys are able to go to school. We still have gaps there, but we are seeing improvements there. There are also improvements in the teacher-student ratio, with more teachers being employed across the region. Overall, again, also in health, you're seeing improvements within Africa. But similar again to Zambia is the issue around employment, around the manufacturing sector, where there's a lot of work that needs to be done there.
Okay.
Also the work around agricultural production, although progress has been made there, and that speaks to the SDGs on life on land and also life under the water, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Progress is being made, but a lot still needs to be done.
The number that we're using is 07728322122. If you wish to be part and parcel of today's program, where we're looking at how Zambia has fared in terms of achieving the SDGs, and also just a brief background where we're coming from as a country. And my guest on the program, like I keep reminding you, we do have the UN resident coordinator. This is Ms. Beatrice Mutali, and also have Dr. Christopher Kalila, who is a Lukulu East Member of Parliament and is also chairperson of All Party Caucus on Sustainable Development Goals. On Wednesday, 14th June 2023, the Right Honourable Madam Speaker, Honourable Nelly Muti MP, and the representatives from the United Nations launched the SDGs radio and television program series, dubbed SDGs and You program. Let's just have a feel of what really happened on that particular day, for the sake of you people that missed out. Take a look at this.
The SDGs that were adopted by the world leaders in September 2015 are important because they transform our world, with the partnerships being identified as critical in their implementation and achievement. It is against this background that the National Assembly of Zambia has partnered with the United Nations in producing this informative program series that is expected to create awareness about SDGs. Through this program, it is also envisaged that the listeners and viewers will also have an opportunity to relate to the SDGs to their everyday lives and be encouraged to practice sustainable habits. The role of parliaments in achieving SDGs cannot be overemphasized. Through enacting legislation, monitoring, implementation, and promoting citizens' participation, parliamentarians become directly involved in the achievement of the SDGs.
As the United Nations, we're very happy to partner with the National Assembly of Zambia in this endeavour of ensuring wide awareness of the global goals and inspiring action. So not just awareness, but really trying to inspire action in support of the 2030 agenda. So on the 25th of September 1915, all 193 UN member states, including Zambia, unanimously adopted the 17 SDGs to foster global progress in the 3 pillars of sustainable development, namely social, economic and environment. In ensuring progress on these global goals, Zambia has mainstreamed the SDGs in its development plans, with the current one being the 8th National Development Plan. I'm happy to note that the 8th National Development Plan is 87% aligned to the SDGs, in other words, almost fully aligned, an indication of Zambia's commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In the same manner, as the United Nations, we've been supporting the country's development efforts, particularly the 8th National Development Plan and previous National Development Plans. And from January this year, we embarked on the implementation of the Zambia UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, which is fully aligned to the 8th National Development Plan, to guide our support, the UN support, to Zambia for the period of 2023 to 2027.
Well, thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television and Parliament Radio. So that's an excerpt of what really took place during the launch of the SDG and You program. Let me also acknowledge the people that are with us on our Facebook platform. I do have Mr. Ken H. TC Chansa, and you are watching us all the way from Central Province and Kapiri, to be precise. I also have Gretson Chibex, all the way from Ndola. Thank you so much for being with us. Mwaka A. Hakire from Lusaka, and Lucky Jolwe Hatimbe Yang, all the way from Chipepo area. Mili K, watching from Joma in Southern Province. And we do have somebody on the line. The number that we're using is 0772832122. You're live on, okay, we've lost that caller there. Keep trying. The number is 0772832122. Let me also acknowledge other people that are with us on our Facebook page. But before I do that, we do have somebody on the line. You're live on SDG and You program. Your name and where you're calling us from? Hello, good morning. Hello, caller, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, keep trying. It's 0772832122 is the number. We launched the program on the 14th of June. What do we intend to achieve?
Indeed.
As a United Nations,
yes,
in collaboration with the National Assembly of Zambia? Indeed,
the United Nations was very happy to join the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament in launching this series. And for us, it's really significant to be able to work with parliamentarians on this series, because as we all know, we are at the halfway mark of the SDGs. And like we've just been discussing, Zambia, like many countries, has made progress, but we are far from where we should be at the halfway mark. So the importance of launching this is really to galvanize that attention to the public, so that we all understand that we really need to redouble our efforts to fast track the implementation of the SDGs if we are to come close as a country to achieving the SDGs, what Zambia signed up to and what the rest of the world signed up to. And what the criticality of working with parliamentarians is that we recognize that they are on the ground, they have the ear of the community. So they have the potential to really galvanize the community to work with us. Because as I think we heard from the speaker in the remarks, and also from the Member of Parliament, the SDGs, the way they were set up, they were really inclusive. They are very clear that it is not just government that is going to achieve the SDGs. It is everybody. It is government, it is the community, the civil society organizations, the parliamentarians.
Just hold your thought there. Let's accommodate a caller there. We hear the views from our viewers and our listeners out there. The number that we're using is 0772832122. We do have somebody on the line. Your name and where you're calling us from? All right, it seems like we've lost that caller. Keep trying. It's 0772832122. If you have any question or contribution that you would want to make regarding today's topic on the SDG and You. Let's try this one as well. You're live on Parliament. Your name and where you're calling us from? Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. I can hear, but it's quite faint. Hello, caller. Good morning. All right. I did interrupt your line of thought. Maybe you can conclude your.
Oh yes. So I think I was talking about the criticality of having launched this series with the parliamentarians is the fact that parliamentarians are on the ground and are able to actually communicate to the public the role that they play in ensuring that we all contribute to the SDGs. Because the SDGs, as I said, they're everybody's business. I mean, making a difference in the SDGs even calls every individual can make that difference. You know, by simply even planting a tree, you make the difference. By ensuring that you turn off the taps, you're making a difference. By ensuring that children go to school, you're making a difference. By ensuring that people with disabilities are not left behind, that children with disabilities go to school, that they're able to go right up to having a skill and be able to support their families rather than be independent, than be dependent, you're also contributing to the SDGs.
Doc, you're part of the people that launched this program on the 14th of June. What does this program, the launch of this program, mean to you as the chairperson of this caucus?
Okay, first, in fact, it answers the very question that you asked me earlier, that what are some of your activities that you've lined up about sustainable development goals. So the launch of that program to us was very exciting, as I explained in the auditorium on that particular day, in the sense that it gave us parliamentarians an opportunity to interface with our citizens, to explain exactly what we do, not only as caucus members, but generally as members of parliament. Remember, Paul said, I said, every member of parliament.
Would you just hold your thought, because I have a clip of what you said, so at least Ms. Montali will be also able to get to hear what really transpired on that particular day. But before we run to that clip, let's see if we do have somebody on the line on 0772832122. That's the number that we are using if you wish to take part on today's program. Let's also acknowledge the people that are with us on the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook page. Like that Facebook page and let us know where you're watching us from. We do have Mr. Nicholas Harrison, Joe Mfune as well. You are with us on this platform. We have Mr. Nicholas Harrison again. Keep sending these text messages. We really appreciate. There is a question that is coming from Mr. Monde, all the way from Palavana, right here in Lusaka. I'd like to find out how are you localizing these SDGs? Maybe I can start with that.
But I was going to speak about that eventually. You must. I'm sure.
Okay, sorry, we have somebody on the line. Sorry, Doc. Allow me. Let's hear our feedback. You're live on SDG and You program. Your name and where you're calling us from? Just do us a favor by reducing the volume on your television set.
Hello.
Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Just do us a favor by turning down the volume. All right, it's like they wanted to hear themselves in the background as well, which cannot really work because of feedback. Let's see if we have another caller on 07728322122. That's the number that we are using if you want to be part and parcel of today's presentation of SDG. And you make sure that you reduce the volume on your set there. You're live. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Oscar Msenje.
Mr. Msenje, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Ndola.
From Ndola. We do have the resident coordinator from the UN and Dr. Kalila. Your question regarding what we're looking at today.
Hello?
Hello. Proceed with your contribution.
Yes, actually we really so thankful for what has actually come in, and your program is very, very, very vital, I believe, to the people of Zambia, not only the people of Zambia, as well as maybe, say, Africa or the entire world. What I want to say is that there are many people that do not understand what SDGs means. So I want just to contribute and say that if they can able to clarify to the people, I thank you, Honorable MP, that what are SDGs, so that people can able to understand what that means.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, please, I appreciate it. Thank you. Oscar Msenje calling. Actually, I'm calling from, I'm a national coordinator for Zambia Development Advocate, Zambia.
Thank you so much. We appreciate, Oscar, for your contribution. The number is 077283212. Maybe we can accommodate 2 or 3 sets of calls then my guest on today's program will be able to respond to your question or contribution. Make use of 077 if you have any question that would want to ask the UN resident coordinator. We have somebody.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. Your name and where are you calling us from?
Hello?
Hello, good morning. Your name?
Yes, morning. How are you, sir?
Fine, thanks. Your name and where are you calling us from?
I am calling from Mbala, Mr. Samuel Stone.
Mr. Sichone, all the way from Umbala. Your quick contribution on the program. Oh, we've lost Mr. Sichone. Would have loved to hear from Umbala his contribution. Feel free to call us back, Mr. Sichone, if you're able to. Make use of 077283212 is the line that we are using. But still, you can also send in your questions on our Facebook platform. That's the National Assembly of Zambia, and we'll be able to acknowledge your question, and I'll be able to read them. Doc, maybe you can respond to the question that previous Oscar asked all the way from Mondola.
Okay, so the question was, how can we explain in simple terms the sustainable development goals for the common person on the street or everybody else to understand? I did indicate earlier that from our side, as members of parliament, we believe that sustainable development goals are not new or rocket science. This is simply, for the first time in the last millennium, so to speak, up to now, an attempt by world leaders, world leaders in terms of, one, how do they end poverty in the world? Secondly, how do they ensure that citizens of the world live in peace and prosperity? Third is, how do we protect the planet? And so in order to do that in a sustainable way, and in order to do that, they sat together and narrowed down the common themes that will ensure that a country will be able to have prosperous citizens that live in peace without any security threats of any form, and also reduce poverty. And what are those 17 themes that they came up with? So those 17 themes or goals are what are known as sustainable development goals. And these are things like, number one, ending poverty. Number two, ending hunger. Number three, ensuring that our citizens have good health and live well. Okay? Because there's a link between productivity, between the activities of any one of us and the health of that individual. So it was necessary that there must be a goal on health. But you all know too that you also need a citizenry that are educated for you to be able to solve the problems within your society. So there was also a goal on education, which is goal number 4, that is quality education. And then they went further also to ensure that there is gender equality, not to forget the fact that we need clean water and sanitation, not to forget the fact that you need affordable and clean energy. I mean, you know that in the absence of energy, then all these aspirations about industrialization and so on will never work. So you also need a very good sources of energy, which is sustainable goal number 7. And then you also need decent work and economic growth. Everybody talks about job creation. So in order for citizens to create wealth, to earn, they need to work. So governments must then ensure that they have programs within their development plans that creates decent work and economic growth. And in the case of Zambia, within the 8th National Development Plan, in fact, the main pillar, which is economic transformation and job creation, simply answers to this goal number 8. I could go on and on up to the last goal, which is number 17. All of these were carefully selected, deliberated upon, discussed, agreed by consensus, and narrowed down to these 17 themes or goals.
Now,
And this is what sustainable development goals are. And by the way, before you close, if you look at them, as I said, they are nothing new. except that we all agree that to do this, this is the framework that we need to see progress. And us as members of parliament, we have been dealing with this since time immemorial. When you talk about why, Honorable Minister, we don't have a school there, why, Honorable Minister, we don't have boreholes there, we are talking about this. And of interest is that one of the major policy shifts, particularly in the current New Dawn government, has been fiscal decentralization through the enhanced constituency development fund. A lot of money which has been spread to all our constituencies, and we are very busy currently as members of parliament in ensuring that we are using this money. And if you look at what we are using it, it's mostly across these 17 sustainable goals.
When we started this program, we did look at where we're coming from as a country, and we did talk about the MDGs. What should countries do to avoid the repeat of what happened with the MDGs, where countries could not achieve these goals? What measures should be put in place by these countries globally?
No, very good question. I think there are a number of things that countries should do to really learn from or do better than what we did during the MDG era. One thing is that we recognize within the MDGs that data, we don't take into consideration the data. So even measuring the progress that we were making was not very evident. With the SDGs, data is central to that. And you'll notice, for example, in Zambia last year, we had the national census. So with the census, we've also had living conditions survey. We've had a demographic and health survey. So we have all this data that is available, and with that, we're able to measure the progress that we're making over time and be able to see whether we're making progress or not and where the gaps are. So data is very critical. The other thing, the gap within the MDGs was also the lack of inclusivity, where we did not, the focus was only on government. The SDGs, the focus, as we've said, is on everybody, including making sure that nobody is left behind. Like I said, even those with disabilities have to be included. The issues of gender equality have to be taken into consideration. Another thing is also understanding that development does not take place in isolation. That all these areas, as outlined, it's very impressive listening to the Member of Parliament and how he knows each of the goals, that all these goals are interlinked. You can't implement one and think that you move forward without implementing the others. You have to implement all of them. They are interlinked and integrated. So if the world, or even at a country level, if we are to make progress, we need to focus on all 17.
From the UN point of view, among the 17 SDGs, which one would you single out that Zambia is making positive strides in terms of achieving it?
From the UN's point of view?
Yes.
Well,
because I do have the Member of Parliament, so he needs to
but,
to share with.
But what you're saying is very interesting, because you know, as you listen to the Member of Parliament, he did mention that globally there is the voluntary national reviews, and with the voluntary national reviews, countries put themselves forward and review the progress that they are making over time. Zambia, as a country, did its voluntary national review in 2020 to really measure the progress that had been made at that point in time. Zambia also put itself forward to review progress made by 2023, and that's the exercise that's been going on since January. And that report is actually being submitted to the United Nations by end of this week. Now, what that report shows is that there's been progress in most of the areas, as the Member of Parliament mentioned, but there are some areas that have moved faster than others. Education is one that, for sure, that we've seen progress. And some of those indicators are very clear. I mentioned the teacher-student ratio, which has improved. The number of children going to school has improved. In the health sector, we are also seeing improvements. In the agricultural sector, we are seeing improvements.
So would you safely say that Zambia is making strides in all the 17?
It is making strides, but of course there are areas where we are a bit behind. And those are the areas around really the manufacturing, economic development sector, those are areas that where we really need to make a lot of work. We really need to put a lot of effort in.
The number that we are using if you wish to take part on today's program is 077-2832-122. That's 077-2832-122. Earlier on, we did share with you what transpired during the launch on the 14th of June 2023 here at Parliament Buildings in the Amphitheatre. We also had representatives from the Ministry of Information, and also we had the clerk of the National Assembly, and indeed I did stop Dr. Kalila from sharing with us what he shared with the people that attended the launch on the 14th. So for now, let's take a look at what really happened during the launch. Let's watch this.
It gives me immense pleasure to be part of this important event where we are launching the Sustainable Development Goals program series, which will be aired on the parliamentary radio and television with the support from the United Nations. I take this opportunity to applaud the National Assembly of Zambia and the United Nations for partnering to produce this important program series, which is aimed at airing and raising awareness about the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, the importance of the partnership in the implementation of the SDGs and the attainment of Agenda 2030 cannot be overemphasized. Zambia considers the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as a national agenda. The country aspires to become a prosperous middle-income nation by year 2030.
Ourselves were very excited with the launch of this program because it provides a platform for members of parliament to begin to interact directly with our citizens, to interact directly with civil society, to interact directly with our partners, and also generally to take in some of those calls, and also to showcase or highlight how, as members of parliament, we are involved, of course, in a complementary law with our government. Madam, as a bridge between government and the people in the implementation of matters of sustainable development goals, we are, as a caucus, are therefore delighted at this initiative, and we look forward for more engagement with Parliament Radio and television.
Many times, Madam Speaker, we speak about SDGs, but when you are asked what these are, none of us, I think the majority of us, can hardly remember any of them or cite them. And therefore, it has given us an opportunity, this program has given us an opportunity to appreciate what SDGs are and the targets thereof. So I'm greatly honored this morning, Madam Speaker, and Madam Deputy Speaker, and the head table and members of Parliament and the others present, on behalf of management, to welcome you all to Parliament Buildings. Some of us are here for the first time. You are welcome. And others are returning for perhaps many occasions. And so we are here to witness the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals Program series that will be aired on Parliament Radio and television. The program series, which is produced by the National Assembly of Zambia in partnership with the United Nations, is aimed at creating awareness about the SDGs in order to encourage radio listeners and TV viewers to be actively involved in the implementation of the goals and achievement of Agenda 2030.
There you have it. That's the SDG and You program there. We had the Acting Minister of Information and Media, and that's Honorable Makozo Chikote MP, and indeed not forgetting Dr. Christopher Kalila, who is chairperson of All-Party Caucus on Sustainable Development Goals, and we also had our acting clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Roy Ngulube, talking about the launch there. What implications will Zambia face, or other countries in the region, if they fail to achieve the SDGs by 2030?
Interesting question. I think the SDGs, as we said, they're goals that all leaders across the world have committed to achieve. And what is important is the efforts made to achieve those goals. By 2030, if countries don't achieve them, I think what will be important is understanding where the country is at that point in time. What has been achieved and why? What has not been achieved and what are the roadblocks? And I think based on that, replan and see how those areas that are off track can be achieved. So it will really be helpful for each country, including Zambia, to review progress that will have been made by 2030, and if necessary, replan to ensure that all goals are achieved. Because in the end, achievement of the goals really will result in better life for everybody at an individual level, but also at a national level and at a global level.
Doc, how can individuals contribute to the attainment of these SDGs?
Yeah, okay. First of all, I remember, person, there was one question that hasn't been answered on how, which links to what you are saying. I think somebody on Facebook asked the question,
how we are localizing.
How we are localizing the Sustainable Development Goals. In the Zambian setup, the planning, which leads to the national budget and also to the 8th National Development Plan, is a bottom-up integrated approach. And thanks to many members of parliament in the past and present who fought significantly to ensure that this approach is undertaken. So currently, all our development plans begin from the bottom, okay? And even currently where we are implementing the constituency development plan, whatever our communities want, all are initiated right from the bottom via ward development committees. And it's amazing that our people know about these sustainable goals without necessarily knowing that they are sustainable development goals. So all of them ask or request for various forms of implementation with regard to all this. So we get a lot of applications about sinking boreholes or providing safe and clean water, building schools or health centers, health posts, hospitals, buying equipment. All these things begin from the bottom. We only go in there to make approvals and give them money. But not only that, health begins with you, an individual, you know that. Education begins with you as a family, and so on, you know that. So most of our people are already engaged in one form or another of trying to ensure that these sustainable development goals are implemented, except they don't know. But these are the issues that bring about, that create wealth, that create good health, that send our children to school, that ensure at the end of the day that we are all living in a secure and peaceful environment. These are the issues that ensure that we have wealth. So basically, each and every one of us, for you to have a job, to come to work present here, is that you are earning some money that is generating wealth for yourself and for your family, and you are contributing. Obviously, when you invest that money and also look after, you're contributing to these sustainable development goals. But at the same time, we also realize that there are some of our citizens who are among the poorest of the poor. And you realize that within the same sustainable development goals, nations are impressed upon themselves to ensure that there's social protection for such citizens. And even here in Zambia, more than 1 million are on social protection to ensure that they are also shielded from that. The idea is that at the end of the day, by 2030, which is, by the way, 7 years from now, at least a great majority of our citizens are living at peace with the environment, with themselves, and also wealth generally.
As
Of
we come
course, at all.
to as we come to the end of today's presentation of SDG and you, I know you've highlighted quite a number of challenges that countries are facing, Zambia inclusive. But how can countries overcome these challenges? Maybe I'll start with Ms. Mutali.
Can you repeat that question?
We've highlighted quite a number of challenges that countries are facing in achieving these targets. But how can countries overcome these challenges as we wind up the program?
I think in terms of, you rightfully said, a number of countries, or practically all countries, are facing challenges with the achievement of the SDGs. Now, in terms of what can be done to overcome these challenges, I think a key point is what is happening here with this series. Making sure that everybody is aware of the SDGs, because as we say, as we got one of the callers asking, what exactly are the SDGs? Getting everybody at the community level to understand what the SDGs are, what their role is in contributing to the SDGs, what can they do in terms of contributing to the SDGs. I think that awareness creation is key. But also understanding that all sectors need to be involved. I think it's also important that the regular reviews that are taking place, that they're disseminated, that the community at large knows this is the progress that we have made. Because if you look at the report that will come out, it doesn't just say in education we have improved. It goes in depth to say under education there are these 4 or 5 indicators. We may have improved in 1, 2, or 3, but in 4 and 5, these are the challenges. Really ensuring that we understand where the gaps are and responding to those gaps. So each country needs to understand where the gaps are, where the challenges are, and ensure that they re-strategize to address those. So these reviews are very critical. For Zambia, understanding what the latest review, the findings of the latest review will be critical in ensuring that we are able to kind of reset ourselves and ensure that we are able to put ourselves in a better situation in responding to the challenges. So this review will actually sit side by side with the 8th National Development Plan, because as my colleague, the Member of Parliament, rightfully said, the 8th National Development Plan has mainstreamed the SDGs. This review that has come up really just goes to show where we are at the moment, where the shortcomings are, and how we should address them. So I think every country needs to do that if they are to really ensure that they try to get back on track in terms of getting back on track to the year 2030.
Dr. Kalila,
Yep.
how can Zambia overcome some of the challenges that the country faces?
So from our perspective, as the way I see it, I mean, one of the biggest gaps or difficulties with implementing these sustainable development goals is that they require a lot of money. I mean, you can see, first of all, they are very ambitious, okay, and you require a lot of money to, so as countries of the world, I mean, it's not all countries that are fortunate to have a huge national basket of money, or if you could call it that way. So one of the biggest challenges as a country, apart from what Madam Mutali said, having just recovering from the COVID pandemic, the war in Ukraine, which is having an impact on food supplies to some other countries, but also is to ensure that there is enough money that can go around to end poverty, in other words, to provide more money for social protection, to ensure we end hunger, all these things, build new facilities around, and just infrastructure requires a lot of money. And if you see that as a country, the last 10 years economically has not been very rosy for this country, with negative growth. Thank God now it's positive growth, thank God to the thanks to the New Dawn government. And also the debt mountain was compounding the situation, leading to a slowing down in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. But again, all these, as parliamentarians, we have seen an attempt at resolving them. You're all aware of the recent announcement with regard to debt restructuring. So we believe that some resources will be freed to begin to address some of these sustainable development goals. But also important that citizens are sensitized. It's not only the usual one about infrastructure, about education, about health, and so on. We also have some other social, what I would like to call social sustainable development goals. I mean, things like responsible consumption and production. You know, so if you are going to pollute or damage the environment because of the irresponsible ways of production and others, then no matter how much you invest your money into agriculture and others, so you need other forms of smart agriculture, including responsible consumption, such as you see nowadays we have all these problems among our young people of substance abuse and harmful use of alcohol, all those things. We have things like peace, justice, and strong institutions, one of the sustainable development goals. Now, with here, we need to sensitize our communities about this issue of corruption. When you take money away because of your corrupt activities, you are actually taking money away which should have been used to implement these sustainable development goals, ultimately which will ensure that our citizens are living at peace with themselves, the world, and also wealth.
Thank you so much, Doc, and really appreciate your presence here on this first series of the SDG and U program. Ma'am, I'd like to say thank you so much for finding time from your busy schedule just to share with our viewers and our listeners out there on this platform, and really saying thank you so much.
Thank you too.
There you have it. That's the first series of SDG and U program, and this is a program that will be coming every Wednesday at 08:35 hours on Parliament Radio and television. My guest on today's program, I had Ms. Beatrice Mutali, who is United Nations Resident Coordinator, and Dr. Christopher Kalila, who is Local East Member of Parliament. He is also chairperson of all-party caucus on sustainable development goals. And today we're looking at the 17 SDGs and also looking at the performance, how Zambia has fared, and indeed not forgetting the brief background where we're coming from as a country. We'll be back next week, like I mentioned earlier on. My name is Paulson Tindovi on behalf of the entire production crew, and indeed not forgetting you, our viewers and our listeners, for finding time and be part and parcel of today's presentation. God bless and keep watching and listening to Parliament.